Today we're going to make my great-grandma's perfect flaky pie crust. Now what we do is we have to start out with a half a cup of butter. Do not use margarine. Margarine will ruin it. You have to use butter. So you're going to start out with a half a cup, which is 1 cube of butter. You want to get yourself a good sharp knife, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to cube the butter. Okay, so you cut your butter in half. Then we're going to make cubes. Okay, so take it. You want to make cubes about this size, almost like a sugar cube. So go ahead, make your butter cubes. Try to get them not to stick together, because you don't want one big glob of butter. So just go ahead, make your butter cubes. All right. Now you want to start with definitely a good chilled butter. So make sure the butter, you have a real good cold refrigerator, and get your butter in there the night before. Maybe even put it down where your coldest area is, your produce area, or your meat, where you keep your meat in the refrigerator. Okay, so once we get all these guys cut up into cubes, like I said, about the size of a sugar cube, Okay, make sure they're kind of separate. We don't want them to stick together. Now what we're going to do, of course I'm going to have to come back with you. I like to put these, so I put them on a big plate, so you get your butter. I'll go ahead and put these in the freezer for probably about a half hour, because we want them to be very firm when we go to use them. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, we'll go ahead and take a 1.25 cups of flour. Alright? You're going to add to the 1.25 cups of flour about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Okay? Then I like to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. Okay? We're going to set all that aside, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to chill our butter. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our butter in there. You could just dump it all in. I already put the top on, so that's why I'm doing it kind of by hand. But just go ahead and get all your butter in there. And then you don't want to go crazy with this food processor. What you want to do, because the butter, what's going to happen, what we want to do here, now we're going to just pulse it, okay? Just pulse it here. And what you want to do is you only want to pulse it until the butter, you can see they're like almost pea size. So go ahead and pulse it a bit. Whatever you do, don't just turn the on button on. You'll destroy it. So go ahead and pulse it, and you notice that your butter, if you are using a metal blade, which is not going to hurt, you probably pulse it a little less than that. But now all my butter cubes are around pea size. So now something I did off the camera, about 5 minutes before I took my butter out of the freezer, I had a frosty glass with ice in it. I added some ice water, and I put this in the freezer for about 5 minutes. The ice water is very, very important. The cold water, don't use room temperature. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to add approximately 5 teaspoons of water. Okay, so we have our 5 teaspoons of water. We're going to pulse it again. And you'll start to notice that the crust is starting to come together a little bit. You're going to have to keep add teaspoon at a time, until it actually starts forming a ball. Okay? You don't want to just pour the water in, or you'll have a watery mess. But we're not seeming to form a ball yet, so we go ahead and put a couple more teaspoons of water in. And just pulse it. Again, I can't tell you that enough. Okay, we're starting to get pieces, to come together. I'm going to go with another 2. You'll know when you've put enough water in, it'll immediately start to come together as a ball. It will form into a ball. Getting close. Sometimes I start with 7 or 8 teaspoons of water, and then I go ahead and just add little bits as I go. Okay, here we go. We're coming into a ball now. I might add just a little more. There we go. We're forming a nice ball. Maybe just a touch more, and that's it. Okay. So we want to go ahead. We have ourselves a ball. Go ahead and pull it out. You have a ball. Now what you've made here is enough for 2 crusts. So go ahead and split it in half. Make a ball out of it. And what I did is I prepared a couple pieces of plastic. And now you have your pie crust. Okay, we're gonna wrap these balls of dough into this plastic I've put down. Just go ahead and wrap them. Doesn't have to be too tight. Now you have a bottom and a top crust. I'm going to have to chill these. You need to either chill these, they say 4 hours, or overnight. Great grandma only did it for like 2 hours. So what we're going to do is we're going to put these in the refrigerator to chill them, and I'll be back with you in about 2 hours. Alright, we're back. I went ahead and I let the pie crust chill, the ball of dough chill in the refrigerator for several hours. A lot of recipes would call for 4 hours or overnight. Great grandma used to just do it for a couple hours and everything always turned out great. So, we've got our flour. We've got a good clean surface here. Go ahead and throw out some flour. It doesn't have to be a lot. And we've got our ball of dough that was in the refrigerator. Go ahead and get that out. Kind of roll it a little bit in the flour to get some flour on it. All the flour is going to do is prevent it from sticking. I like to get it about like this. Now what I used to like to do was just take the ball of dough and throw it in the pie pan and shape it by hand. What I came to find out is the more that you mess with the dough, the tougher it gets and the less flaky it gets. So we go ahead and get our rolling pan. You might put a little bit of, get a little bit of flour on your rolling pan. And then just, get it rolled out. It doesn't take too long. Go ahead and, I like to go side by side. You don't have to keep it in a perfect circle because you're going to make it a little bit bigger than your pie pan. So that way the crust will, it'll be bigger than the pie pan so you can fold it over with your top crust. Now this one, I'm not going to make a top crust, although the top crust is always a little bit smaller than the bottom crust, because what will happen is when you put your crust into your pan, for instance, your bottom crust, you may want it to extend about this far. Once it's in your pan, you'd want it to extend this far. And then the top crust could be a lot shorter, maybe just a little bit beyond the pan. That way, after you've filled it and put your top crust, you crimp it over, and seal it so nothing leaks out. I actually prefer a little more of a thin pie crust than most people. That's up to you. Now this one's going to be a Dutch crunch apple pie. So it's going to be a totally different top layer of the pie. So what you do is you go ahead and try to get this folded in half. Get it right about the middle of the pan. Don't be afraid to play with it. It'll be fine. So go ahead, get this in your pan. Make sure you've got, you're pretty much in a good place. This is a little, this could move over just a little more. There we go, a little too much. What you want to do is try to make sure you have it pretty close, to even, where you have enough of the crust hanging over. Now this one, since it's going to be the Dutch crunch, it doesn't really matter because we're going to cut it right along the edge of the pie tin. So we're going to go ahead and cut this crust right along the edge of the pie tin. Okay. And this is also good because if, you know, when you do make your top crust, you have your ball of dough in the refrigerator, it's a little smaller than the ball of dough for your bottom crust. You can add what you're cutting off if you feel like, you know, you'd like a thicker top crust. I prefer with pies, with pizza, with about anything I do, when it comes to doughs, I prefer a thin crust, okay? So you've got your pie. It's really nice into your pan. What I do is I just go like this. I go ahead and I just crimp up the edges a little bit, kind of make them almost sharp on the top. Now it's up to you. If you like a lot of crust, you could leave a little more. You could cut it off a little wider than I did. I actually like it like this. Okay, so then you kind of just define, you know, the edge here. A lot of people will not even put an edge on them. They just, you know, they're not big into the crust. I like the crust, but I'm much more into what I put into it. So you kind of push it back a little bit. Back after you've kind of crimped it at the top, push it back a little bit. So you're covering, you know, you're not seeing the rim of your pie tin. So push that back, and there we are. Okay, we got the perfect pie crust. Now, there's a couple things you're going to do with this crust. Okay, number one, you're going to put either apples or cherries or stuff like that in it. That's going to be a filling you're going to have to bake. So this pie crust is ready to go. This is ready to put your apples in it, and either your, you know, your dough topping, pie crust topping, or your, you know, Dutch crunch topping. If you decide to make a non-baked pie, which would be more, say, a coconut cream, a chocolate cream, a strawberry pie, what you're going to want to do is a dry bake. You're going to have to bake the pie crust prior to filling it, because you're not going to put pudding in it and then bake it. So that's what we call a dry bake. What you want to do is go to the store and get a bag of dry beans, the type of beans that you would you know, soak all day and then make bean soup or chili. Any type of dry beans, and you fill your pie crust with the dry beans. Then at about a 350-degree oven, you cook it, you know, anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. You'd have to keep an eye on it and stop it at the point you like it. Some people like the crust a little more brown. Some people like it a little less brown. So what the beans do, if you try to bake it just like this, your sides are going to cave in and you're not going to have a pie crust. So if you're going to do a non-baked pie, at this point you'd want to go ahead and fill it with beans, put it in your oven, 350, 8 to 12 minutes depending on how done you want it, and then cool it, and then you can add your non-baked pie ingredients. Anyway, so voila, there is Great Grandma's pie crust. That is the best pie crust. It's easy to work with. It's great. So why don't you guys give it a shot and keep an eye out for my next video. It's going to be Great Grandma's Dutch Crunch Apple Pie. So thanks for watching this video, and get in the kitchen and let's have some good pie.